You're listening to the Clutter Fairy Weekly, a weekly webcast and podcast brought to you by the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas. If you'd like to participate in one of our live webcasts, please visit cfhou.com/weekly. You'll find a calendar of upcoming webcasts, as well as instructions for joining the Zoom meeting via the app or by phone. We'd love to see you. That URL again is cfhou.com/weekly. Now here's the weekly episode. Enjoy.
Hi, Clutter Fairy fans. This is the Clutter Fairy Weekly for August 4th, 2026. I'm your co-host, Ed Gumnick, and I'm speaking with Gayle Goddard, certified professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas.
Hi, everybody. The Clutter Fairy Weekly is the webcast and podcast that digs deep into the clutter that piles up between you and the life that you want to be living. We explore the habits and behaviors that lead to clutter, and we suggest strategies to slow the accumulation, reduce the collection, and comfortably manage the stuff we decide to keep.
If you're new to our Zoom meeting, we want to let you know that you can share your comments and questions via the chat, and I'll try to make sure Gayle addresses them before we move on to another topic. I'm a little tongue-tied today. You can also use the raise hand feature if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment yourself via audio or video. And we are streaming the webcast live on Facebook, we think. So you can share your comments and questions there, and I'll share them with Gayle. We're going to start by talking about last week's weekly tittle, which was called The Unexamined Stash. The assignment was to identify, clarify, and manage an accidental collection. And we used accidental collection to mean any set of objects beyond a few that just
you weren't trying to collect.
You weren't trying to make a collection, but you just found one all of a sudden. Let's hear from our participants in Zoom and on Facebook who purged or downsized an unintended collection this week. Please let us know in the comments. YouTube viewer TrueMax33 shared a tittle report on her accidental collection. TrueMax writes, one of the few fat-free foods my dog is allowed to have is a store-brand sliced turkey lunch meat. It comes in a plastic bag encased in a lovely plastic container with a matching lid. I saved a few, then it was too many for our plasticware area. Now I have over 50, looking for a place to donate them.
That is a big collection. And here's the thing about dogs. They want the treats nonstop. There's no ending of the treats. So we know this collection is going to continue to grow. So those containers are the company's perfect solution for their transport problem and helping keep the product from spoiling. Because once you open it, then you can close the plastic lid and it keeps it in good shape. All of this makes it the lunch meat, the customer friendly and likely to be sold, which is what their goal is. But you end up with a nonstop, ever growing collection of perfectly usable, barely used containers. And the good thing about a collection is it makes them more appealing to somebody who would want them as storage containers themselves. So I would try the local food bank first to see if they have a need for such a thing. Sometimes they bulk package products and, redistribute them in smaller parsed out pieces. Yeah. And so maybe they would want something like that. I would also try on Nextdoor or Facebook, put them up for free as a collection. I've got 50 of these. They're exactly the same thing. They're these dimensions, and basically it's a translucent container. It's not perfectly clear, but it's generally a translucent container, which, makes them at least, you can see generally what's in there and they can be labeled. So somebody who has a garage and keeps a bunch of little tools or parts or a crafter might like the fact that these stackable containers are available. I mean, they're pretty, you know what a lunch meat box size is. It's pretty small in comparison, and they're all it's the same product, so they're all going to be the same size, so they can be stacked and used. And so anybody that's holding small pieces of anything might find these useful. I would try an elementary school teacher or an art teacher, particularly because they have, if it's something that they give away to the students, then every season they got a new batch of students. And so they could use another, 50 or 100 or whatever that they've got. So you need somebody that can take the ever expanding collection. Like the dogs are going to keep eating the treats. You still need to be able to give them away going forward. So you want a pipeline. That's what I'm really trying to say. You want a pipeline for stuff. So You're going to have to get creative about who to ask, and it's not going to drop into your lap. If you want to give them away, then you're going to have to ask around and make their existence known until you find somebody who can use them. And so that's going to involve asking people, making phone calls, being discouraged, getting no's all over the place until you finally find somebody. So if you are uncomfortable giving away, throwing them away or trying to recycle them just into the regular recycling, then you're going to have to do some work to find your alternative pipeline for these things. And I agree with you that they're useful, and the food comes in its a little plastic pouch inside the plastic container. So, they barely even get touched by the food. So, they really are in perfectly good shape, and they should be useful for somebody. But, if you're going to have a continuous supply, you need a pipeline where it can go. And so finding somebody who would be reusing them with a new collection over and over again, like even a crafter is going to run out of need at some point. And
I was going to suggest, if you know someone who likes to bake or cook stuff to give away, we do homemade dog treats, and we have lots and lots of neighbors with dogs. And so we constantly give away all of our deli containers and such. And so a supply of those shallow luncheon meat containers would be most welcome when we're giving away dog treats. And some, people who like to bake for every holiday, at least the winter holidays. You can buy fancy Christmas themed boxes to give away your treats.
And some people do.
But you could also just stick a bow on top of a plastic container full of your cookies, and people will be perfectly happy and willing to overlook the fact that it's not a Christmas themed container.
Well, and just think about, this person needs to be somebody, they don't need to be giving away 10. They need to be giving away 50.
Right. Well, she's right. TrueMax is up to 50 now, but if you give them away a dozen at a time as you accumulate them,
Right. That would be helpful. So that's the kind of thing, like you need to find the recurring pipeline. Christmas cookies is a once a year thing, but it happens every year. So if somebody does it, they might want some every year. And so there'd be a way for you to promise them containers all the time. If you want to be able to not have to hold them for a year, then you probably need to hit a multi-pronged approach here. You can save some for the Christmas. At Christmas time, you give away what you have then, and at other parts of the year, you find other places for the stuff to go. And so do some, ask your friends, talk to the church, make some phone calls and see who might have a need. And you're basically fishing in the dark a little bit, but you can target it by, okay, a teacher is in front of an endless supply of students. A food bank is constantly giving away food. Like there's ways and places where it might make sense to insert containers. And so, think your way through that bag and make some phone calls. And there'll be some point where somebody's like, oh my God, this is exactly what I needed. Thank you so much. And, then you'll be able to be taking them to them all the time. So good luck. And if you come up with a great solution, come back and tell us what it was. We'd love to hear about what you figured out.
Jacqueline says, I've been working on creative projects and maintenance items. I finished a crochet project, yay, and am still working on a stained glass project. At the beginning of every month, I do a sort and organize through my emails and my photos from the last month. A month's worth is not an overwhelming amount, and I can sort through pretty quickly, and it keeps it from turning into a huge project. I've also been trying to keep up with my yard and garden, which is never ending in the summer. But I love the flowers and butterflies and birds, so it's worth the effort.
Well, and a garden is a perfect metaphor for constant maintenance makes the project. Like in order for a garden to stay alive, you have to go out and do the watering and the feeding and the weeding, and you rinse and repeat. Like you just have to keep doing it. There's no doing it once at the beginning of the spring and then ignoring it and having the garden still be there at the end. Like, so it any kind of a project that you can make repetitive, interim, smaller steps on is going to move forward better than one that you wait till the end to do whatever the end is for you. And her
Right.
description of, I'm doing a month's worth, I'm not doing a lifetime's worth of emails. I'm doing a month's worth of photos, not a lifetime worth of photos. And so she creates a month parameter, which makes her population defined and finite. And then, it's something that she feels like she can get through. And so she ends up with discarding a bunch of stuff and handling her emails and filing stuff away, and she's caught up again. And so, just like a garden, she's tending to those things 1 month at a time, and it's working. And that's a good system. I'm glad it works for her.
Yeah, feel like that
Slow and steady wins the
telling
race.
well telling describing her process for us is very very useful. I almost
Mm,
feel like we could probably do a whole show sometime on what do you call that threshold, the how how much of a particular maintenance task can you allow to build up before it gets out of
you
control?
need a trigger.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's great that Jacqueline has worked out that a month is okay.
Yeah, it's her threshold that she can manage,
Yeah.
and feels like she can keep up with. That's great. Yeah, yeah.
And for me, a month feels too long, and yet I probably don't regularly purge email as frequently as
Hmm.
every month. So I should listen to Jacqueline and like make a
Yeah, I mean, she's basically
date with
that,
myself to do it once a month.
right? Because that concept extrapolates to anything that you have to manage, any clutter pile, any collection of stuff that you're trying to that's ever growing and that you're trying to keep on top of, right?
Well, right,
And
like
so,
the dishwasher with two of us, the dishwasher has to run at least every other day. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
it's obvious with chores like that where the stuff piles up
the dishes
quickly
are on the
and
sink.
gets ugly, and it gets ugly fast.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Email, like something like email, and the photos that pile up on your
On your
phone are
phone,
easier
yeah,
to ignore.
exactly,
Um,
100%.
C says, have a collection of bags which fill with random papers. Began downsizing and getting rid of extra tote bags.
Yay, that's a good one. And those tote bags, they work for donating things, so good job. And if all of them are full of paper, then good for you. That's like you're gonna empty a bag at a time. That's what you should do. Get some out of there. I was just working at a client's who's getting ready. She's planning on moving now, and she's going to downsize significantly in terms of square footage. And so she has a room where she has been parking bags of paperwork that she has swept up and stuffed in a bag so she didn't have to look at it. And now it's a literal mountain of bags that is like, 5 feet tall and probably 6 or 7 feet wide and deep. And so it's like this big hours and hours of paperwork we have to go through. And I sat with her one Wednesday night, one Wednesday afternoon, and one Thursday morning. And by the end, like I was doing like this, like mad through paperwork. And at the end, I was like, oh my God, I have carpal tunnel today. Like I could tell in my hands and my shoulders because I was trying to do it fast for her. It was a lot of work to try to do it all in one sitting. So yeah, getting those bags done one at a time right now, good thing to do. Don't let it become the paper mountain that my client is facing.
Pat suggests for as an outlet for the plastic containers, farmers market vendors that could
Oh,
be
good
containers for
idea.
products. Yeah, or if you participate in a CSA, if you have a community supported agriculture, um, if you're getting a farm share, you could save them from having to buy little containers to put your strawberries or your cherry tomatoes in.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
or just
absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
It gives them a way to give away something loose like that without a hassle.
yeah, and without an extra expense. JB says, I'm sure they're highly regulated, but maybe Meals on Wheels would be interested in containers. They probably can't use anything that's been used before, I would be willing to bet, since
Mm-hmm.
they'll be under health department
Right, right,
restrictions on
right.
that, I think. But
Yeah, a good idea, right?
M asks, any ideas for the big opaque plastic jars that protein powders come in, as long as we're talking about what to do with plastic.
Right. So Those are harder because they're not opaque, because the size
Because
of those things is so
because they are
large.
opaque. Yeah.
I mean, they are opaque, sorry, yes.
Right.
And they're so large. And so it's not like the average person needs 15 or 20 protein jars sitting around their house. So it would have to be housing something very specific that then could be labeled for storage without being able to see into the container. So it does shrink your potential use population down a little bit. Um, yeah. I mean, I'm maybe somebody that's doing gardening is, holding soil or whatever, but I mean, even so, the larger volume items might need bigger containers. Like the container is too large for the average person at home to use for something, but they're probably too small for a more commercial venture to use. And so I'm not
Yeah, that's
sure,
a toughie.
right? Like, who would want to do that? Like,
Well, it definitely sounds like a good candidate to put on Facebook Marketplace or
yeah,
Nextdoor.
ask for ideas from people
Yeah.
100%. Like, I've got all these things. Does anybody have any idea about how they can be used? And, ask that more than once in more than one place and see who comes up with an idea or has a need that you don't know anything about. I mean, that's absolutely about making it available to a wide range of people to ask and see if somebody else has some idea
Comes
about
up
what
with
to do with
something.
them. Yeah, or
Yeah.
has a need that you don't understand is happening already.
Okay,
But the fact that they're opaque is a problem, is sort of a barrier for them.
we should probably move on to our
Mm.
main set of topics. Today is an Ask Us Anything episode. So we've been reading through survey responses and such. And when it's time to downsize, what sort of decluttering mindset produces the least stress and the greatest sense of freedom? And what are some of the best excuses Gayle hears from her organizing clients? So we're going to answer these and other viewer and listener questions and discuss short topics suggested by our audience in surveys and social media channels. The first question, this came from Marcia in response to one of our surveys. Marcia asked, as people get into their 70s and 80s, what mindset seems to help them downsize with the least amount of stress and the greatest sense of freedom? Marcia asked, I should say, Marcia answered one of our Ask Us Anything questions on a survey recently with about 5 great topics. So we'll be hearing some more Marcia topics
Marcia
coming along
did a
soon.
brain jump into our
Yeah, yeah.
survey.
And she herself said this, she thought this was the most important one of the questions she'd asked.
Okay,
And so
cool.
we're forging on ahead.
Okay, so my answer, I've got several points to make on this one. One is that you want to focus on your present and future lifestyle instead of the past. Prioritize the things and the experiences that you enjoy right now instead of stuff that used to be important to you. Your life has seasons, and as each season has changed, the stuff has changed along with it. And a better mindset is to remember the seasons and release the physical stuff that supported that season that you no longer need. So that stuff can support someone else that's in that stage of life right now. You need to be surrounded by what supports your current season, not building up an ever-growing collection from your entire life as a dragon horde. He who dies with the most stuff does not win. He leaves his family with a huge, overwhelming project instead that increases their suffering. And I say all that to say all of our life from when we're finally, we start as launched adults and then we show up 6 decades later and we have a lifetime of collections surrounding us. And if you have not ever released or you're very reluctant about releasing things, then you have created a monumental project that is so much work. And so beginning to face the fact that yes, you built this collection, but you don't have to die with it.
Yeah.
You're not trying to build the biggest dragon horde so that when people come to your funeral, they can talk about how big your dragon horde is. Like, it's not a useful goal to keep everything you've ever touched in your lifetime. It doesn't make your retiring seasons easier on you. It makes it harder on you. So think about an emphasis on things being simple and easy and having the freedom to move around. So less stuff means less cleaning, less maintenance, and more time for enjoying your leisure. In your senior era, any less work is a blessing, truly. It's when others need to take over the cleaning for you if possible, and keeping a clean place that's easy to navigate helps keep you safe from physical hazards like falling, which is so important at this stage of life. So the growing dragon horde makes it harder to move around. And if you can simplify that and you can create more space by releasing things, then it makes it safer for you, and it makes it easier to clean, less dust, less contaminant. That all is good for your health. And, less things to trip over, less things to fall on is all good for you as well. So you don't want to be boxed into an ever more crowded space when you have less physical capacity to manage and navigate it. And so this is when making it simpler and easier to manage means that you are taking better care of your health around that. Another way to focus, to really think about it, is you want to cultivate a sensation, a willingness to detach from the physical stuff. The relics of our past are not our identity. Our memories live in our hearts and not in the physical symbols of our loved ones. So I know that you inherited a bunch of stuff from previous generations, and that makes it seem super valuable, but they don't all have to stay with you. They're just physical things. And the people that remember the people that those things came from, you remember those people. And if it's from so far away that you don't remember those people, then it's an even better reason to release it if it's not helping you in your current life. So mostly we get tied up with the things that we collected over our lifetimes that reflect our identity. Like, I was an engineer all my life and I have all these things from when I was an engineer, or fill in the blank. I liked to do, I played soccer for 30 years or whatever. And so
every retired teacher every time we talk to a retired teacher, it's, yes, I have the relics and tools.
All this stuff from teaching.
These were my tools. These were my reference books. These were my These were the lesson plans that I was so proud of creating.
And it's a lifetime collection. I mean, it's an evolution of yourself as a professional, and it shows the growth and improvements that you made in your skill set, and all of those things are true. And you cannot transfer your life history to some other teacher. And like, it benefited you and you used it in your execution of your livelihood and your professional life, but it mostly doesn't translate to the next person. They're over there building their own collection, right? And so it's hard to recognize that what was part of your daily life forever has stopped being relevant, but it is true that those are just the trappings of how you went about doing your life, and you did it successfully, and you got to the end of your career and you retired, and now their purpose for you is done. And most of it will not, some portion of it might be donatable to somebody else, but you have to consider that you don't want to recognize that their season has come to an end, and now all that paperwork is, just needs to be recycled. It's not going to successfully transfer to another teacher. It's not in their voice. It's not in reflecting the most current teaching methods. It's, the mandates from the state about what they're supposed to be teaching. It doesn't reflect that. And so it's not going to translate very well. And so we all get to the end of, I did this for a living for this many decades. And all the time that you're doing it, the way that you do it evolves, and it keeps evolving after you retire. And so your historical collection freezes in time and stops being less and less relevant as the career continues to evolve. And in the meantime, you're not using them. You don't need them for anything. And so it's hard to think about. I mean, the microcosm version of this is you go to college, you study with all those textbooks like mad, you spend all your time with your head in those books, and then the minute you graduate, you're like, oh, thank God. But you don't want to throw the books away because you just bled over them all. except that you never get into them again. So they're immediately not useful for you as soon as you graduate, basically. And so the same is true for your career. It's keepsake, but it's an active working collection that's only active and working while you are active and working. And then when you stop and you retire, that stuff isn't important anymore in terms of there's no execution happening. And so it just needs to be passed on, retired, recycled, and let somebody start building their own collection. Okay, that was all about physical stuff.
Right,
Okay,
right.
sorry. There was one more consideration I wanted to put out here, which is the actual workload of downsizing. When you get to the retirement age, you may or may not, you're going to move, you're going to downsize, you're going to go live near the grandkids. Maybe you need to go to independent living or assisted living. And so you're making physical life changes in order to, spend your retirement years, right? And so while it doesn't seem like it in the moment when you're doing it, releasing things for donation and gifting to family and friends is actually less work than packing it all, moving it all, and unpacking it all. Whatever's donated gets lightly boxed for transport, delivered to where it's going to be delivered, and it's gone. Otherwise, you have to pack it for moving, get it moved, then unpack it and figure out where it's going to live in your new place, which is a whole new set of functions to figure out because now the new house is not shaped like the old one was, and you got to figure out where everything's going to go. So ultimately, it takes way more time as a project. It avoids the decision making of what to release up front, but it greatly expands the physical work and then comes with the decision making that needs to be done to install it in the new place. So making hard decisions and donating up front is truly much less work overall. And it saves you money on the move because you're not packing, moving, and unpacking all that stuff. Like packing it and moving it costs money. And so if you can make the decisions to donate up front, you are saving yourself physical labor because you can do it in advance and do it over time, so it's less physically demanding. And then you're not having to figure out where to wedge all that stuff into the new place. And it's so much less stressful to get it out of there up front. And anybody that I ever talk to about moving, I always say, you have to do decluttering up front as much as you can, because otherwise we're going to be decluttering it on the back end. So then you're going to pay to package it, move it, and unpack it so I can pack it up to donate and take it away. And then you're going to be real annoyed. So, but I mean, moving is a physical project. And in this, when you're in your 70s or 80s, which is what she asked about in her question, that is a high demand on your physical capacity. There is a lot of energy expenditure required for this. And so unless you have the willingness and the money to surrender the entire process to someone else to do, then the best thing that you can do for your own physical capacity is to donate, and spend your energy on donating and getting it out to that charity so that the moving is easier and the unpacking is easier on the other end. The end.
Okay. I think we could almost have done a whole show on that question.
I know, right?
That was a really good question. And let's go on.
Okay.
Maureen asked, Gayle, what are the biggest excuses you come across when working with a client?
So the first thing that came to mind when I read this question was, I'm saving it for the kids. I hear some version of that all the time. Like they think that everybody that is in their downstream genetics is sitting around waiting with bated breath to receive the contents of the house. And that excuse, I'm saving it for the kids. My daughter might want this. I hear my, child might want this in some form a lot. And that comment prevents a lot of decision making. And it's one that I challenge immediately. I will say, okay, let's take a picture and text it to them right now. Like back in the day, that wasn't an option. Now with phones, everybody's got a phone, everybody's holding their phone. And so we can stop and take a picture of it and send it off immediately. And, sometimes people are really unhappy when I make them do that. They're like, oh, you want me to challenge that? You want me to actually find out what they think about it? And then they get a response back to like, oh God, no, mother, I don't want that. And then they're like, oh, because I think Saving it for the kids allows them to decide to do nothing with it currently. And it gives them the possibility that the item will be used by somebody that they love and care about. And so it feels like the value of the item is being transferred to their family. And so that feels like a buffered solution that makes them feel like they're not losing it or giving it away, the value, or losing control of the value, except that your kids are not waiting for all of the contents of your house to come to them. And so they don't want all of your million extra little things sitting around the house. And so I try very hard to bust that one right away. Like, I'm going to send a picture to the kid, and I'm going to ask them to send the picture to their kid and say, do you want it? Specifically so the kid can say no. And then I can say, okay, if this is a no, then where is it going next? Like, who's the next person that we want to donate to? Can I take it out? Because it's an excuse that parents love to do to keep the items in the family and not have to make any choices. Yeah. And I challenge that one a lot.
Well, reading this question, I thought of a story you've told before about a woman who was keeping some very large bookcases. Mm-hmm. And the plan was for when her son gets a place of his own. And it sounded, it sounds like a valid reason.
It's very logical in the moment.
It's reasonable. But if you dig a little bit, I think when you dug a little bit more.
I did.
And the subtext was really something more like, I'm not prepared to admit that my son is not going to have a place of his own anytime soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was a very interesting conversation I did at a speaking engagement. Uh-huh. And, she said, I can't remember what the question was that made her answer this, but she said the bookcases were in the hallway and she walked past them all the time, like several times a day, and they made her angry every time she walked by them, like really angry. And she made a face when she said it, and she was like, it just makes me so angry. I'm like, wow, okay. And so I started asking questions like, what is the deal? Like, why would you save something that's making you so angry every time you walk by it? And so we had this conversation about she was saving them for her son when he got a house. And I'm like, okay, so what's the plan around him buying a house? Is he shopping for a house? Like, what's going on? And she was like, no, he's not really looking for a house right now. And how old was he? He was in his 40s. And, where is he living right now? Oh, he's renting a room from a friend. And I'm like, okay, so those parameters, I'm sorry to say to you, those parameters are not reflecting a person who is on track for buying a house anytime soon. So are you willing to live with these bookcases for the next decade while he saves his money, gets his life together, or whatever's going on with him so when he becomes a person who might be in line for buying a house, like, I don't see that action plan happening right this minute. And so, are you willing to keep them for a decade until then?
Yeah. Do you want to be angry for
a decade,
for 5 to 10 years while he gets in an economic position to buy a house?
She was not. I said, so I think the solution here is that you donate the bookcases now so that you don't have to be angry anymore. And then when and if your son buys a house, you can buy him new bookcases then. And it will, like, you can invest the money down the line when he actually has a house to put them in. And he will be happy to have the bookcases then. But saving them against that for an unknown solution, unplanned for, and no target deadline in sight, like, no point in saving it against that. And so, yeah, that was the ultimate. I'm saving it for my kid, and it makes me mad every time I look at it. She was a good example of, I think I'm doing something that I'm supposed to do for my kids, but it makes me mad. Like, yeah, I talked her out of that one. I hope that she went and donated those bookcases and said, I'll get you new ones when you get a house. Like, I'm hoping that's how it happened. Another excuse is that this item is worth fill in the blank. It's worth some money. People say that because they spent a lot of money on it, or they inherited it and their parents told them it was worth a lot of money because they spent a lot on it, or you inherited it and it's several generations old, and the perception that it's an antique makes you think that it's worth a lot of money. So that financial attachment to the item is an excuse that I challenge a lot with people. It is one of the ways that people decide to keep and make no decision around something. And you have inherited it. You are now the owner. You can decide its disposition. And the truth is, how much you spend on something usually has no correlation to its current value in the moment. So there are a few things in life that hold value or appreciate, and generally it's related to metals or diamonds, gold,
right.
silver,
Precious
metals or
things.
diamonds. Otherwise, those few pieces of jewelry might still have value. The antiques may or may not have value, and in the current market, lots of people are not interested in antiques. It's not currently a popular collection, and so what may have had value 20 years, 40 years, 150 years ago is not necessarily going to have value today. And so keeping it because you think it's worth something is a false perception to stand on. I think you have to go out into the current marketplace and find out what it's really worth, what people are really buying, and whether it's really worth all of your time and effort to keep it because you think it's going to be a jackpot someday. That one is one that prevents people from releasing things that they don't like, that they inherited, and they just keep it because it was grandma's, but it doesn't really need to stay with your family if it's not something that you love and use. And I'm going to try to help you separate from that. If you are making space for something that annoys you and gets in your way, and you don't have any other attachment to it except that it came from a relative, you can keep the memory of your relative and take a picture of the table and still donate the table away to a family that needs a table right now, instead of holding on to it for some perceived sale that you aren't ever going to do, or that you're not in the kids that don't want the table. And yeah, it's a whole conversation. You can't assume that what your parent told you it was worth is what it's actually worth. You
Right.
absolutely have to do current market data around the object and get real about what it's actually worth, not what you would hope or wish or dream that it was worth, because dream doesn't sell nothing.
Right.
Okay.
That reminds me too of something that a comment. I apologize. I don't remember who made it, but when we were talking about art, I think we were talking about artwork last week or the week before, and someone pointed out that there are for artwork and other precious items, there are often two different valuations.
Mm.
One is an insurance valuation, which
In
is
case it's destroyed.
if it's destroyed or stolen, this is how much you can claim against. And then the other is what a market valuation, and that tends to be much, much, much lower. That's what someone is willing to buy it for right now. What how much the dealer that you're talking to thinks they could get for you from it and
Yeah,
take
for the
their
sale
share
of
out
it.
of. And you have to be clear, any figure that you've been told for what something is worth, you have to start by trying to unpack, whose idea of worth was this?
Right. And what was its purpose?
Yeah.
And that's true for any kind of appraisal. If you have an appraisal that's 20 years old that said it was worth this amount of money 20 years ago, that is meaningless in today's market. It's a snapshot of value in time that you can rely on for a year or two, and then you can't consider that it's a reasonable valuation anymore, because things change in the market all the time, and you never know what something's going to be worth going forward. There is nothing out in the market that is super stable all the time, and the valuation only ever goes up, and the value once given stays forever. That doesn't actually exist in nature. So okay, so I do want to say that when an excuse is actionable, or when it tends to shut down any forward progress. So when somebody is making excuse that's actionable, it's an excuse that is reflects a little bit more about reality. So it's an excuse that discusses a roadblock that can be overcome with specific steps that can be worked on to move forward. And that is an actionable excuse.
Well, and that's, I would call that, I would call that a legitimate reason, not an excuse. I
Yes,
would
yes,
tend to
yes.
use
Like,
excuse as an excuse is when you're trying to excuse yourself from doing any work.
right. So if exactly an excuse that blocks all forward momentum, any movement, it's really a stall tactic designed to stop motion. And usually it's because the client doesn't want to face the work or make any decision at all. So if you don't want to if they don't want to face the work or make the decision or do the organizing for whatever emotional reason that's driving that response, then they're giving me an excuse that blocks them from doing anything, and it gives them the cover to do nothing and to maintain the status quo. So
Or
when a
to do
client,
something, or to do something easier, because
yeah, yeah,
you're
yeah.
talking about paying clients, and they don't want to pay you week after week to come over and just give you excuses about why you can't do anything. They're just trying to,
Well, you'd be
they're,
surprised.
but they're trying to avoid the harder choices, the
Yeah, yeah,
harder
yeah, that too.
decisions, the harder
And
work.
the bigger disruption, right?
Right,
They're
right.
trying to like nibble at the edges and not make big
Not
movement. And
change your
so,
life in any big way.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, if the person is giving me this excuse that blocks the forward motion, most of the time I can find another way around to do something. And like, okay, this is blocking you from forward motion here, but what if we do this instead and go a different direction around it? But if that person isn't willing to use an alternate path or clings to the pathway that prevents movement, they're usually signaling to me their unwillingness to make any changes around this. They know on some level they want to improve some part of their life, but they're unwilling to face the changes needed to do it. Sometimes we're not ready for change, so hopefully you don't end up stalling it till the end of your life. I have had clients who hire me, I want to get organized, and then I come in and we start talking about what that's going to look like. And I guess in their head, they thought getting organized was not going to involve any releasing of anything or
Right.
any movement. Like they didn't think about what it was going to be. I was going to actually disrupt their household to do it.
Yeah.
And then they don't have me back because they truly were not actually ready to disrupt anything. Like I think I actually some people actually think that I'm going to magically make it all better without disturbing anything,
Right.
which is not possible. And
You're going to
so
find 1,500 square feet of storage space that they didn't
they didn't
realize they had.
exist. Yeah. And I'm not going to disrupt anything while I'm doing it, which is like, yeah, that's not the truth. So we all make excuses. We all have reasons why we think something can't be done. And my job is to find a way around. Like if this isn't working, if this doesn't solve the problem, then what can we do instead to get you there? And if the client is willing to consider alternate solutions, then we can make forward progress. And so the reason I bring that up is because I think you have to. The original questions were what are the funny excuses, but the real underlying issue is if you are making an excuse that's stopping you from doing something that you, on the one hand, say that you want to do or want to improve in your life, then you have to ask yourself, if this excuse is stopping me, is there another way around? And if I'm not willing to look at another way around, what is that telling me instead? What is that saying about what I say I want to do versus what I feel like doing? And to notice that and to try to pay attention and see what can be done about it. And, if your ultimate solution is, I don't want to do nothing, then, stop telling yourself you want to get organized. There's no point in telling yourself to get organized if you don't actually want to do the stuff that gets organized around. So, read your excuses, I guess. Listen to your excuses and see if they can
Yeah.
be modified or if you are unwilling to shift them. And hopefully that gives you more information about what you need to do around the project.
Okay, we have probably have time to tackle one more of these questions. Do you have a favorite from the list of the other ones that we
Mm,
gathered?
okay, good question.
First one there, Teresa, should I organize old photos or new photos first? What are the pros and cons of either approach? I think this is an interesting one because Well, it gives us a chance to talk about our frequent distinction between the backlog and the ongoing maintenance.
Yes, absolutely.
So what are your thoughts? Like if a client had a bunch of photos, which way would you take that?
So I would the old photos first because I think that the separation from the when the photos took place, the time that's gone by since you saw the photos last makes it easier to evaluate them, I think, with a little bit less. When they're more fresh, they all feel still really important. But you can look at older photos and see, here's the 25 photos of that picture, that birthday. And now I don't know half of these people anymore. And these three shots were blurry. And like you can pick the cream of the crop easier when the photo and the event has, run under the river for a while, run down the river for a while in time. And you have a little bit more emotional separation from the event. And so I think from that standpoint, older photos are easier. Newer photos feel more important and or more current. They have a lot more emotional pull, I think. And so, not to say maybe you are comfortable with doing either one's fine, but I would say if you're looking for having it be less emotionally challenging, I would think about older photos first.
Well, and there's a related question. I wonder if this comes up when you're working with clients. Kim asked, "Can I discard all my photo negatives without guilt?"
Yes, you can. I think you can. Absolutely. Unless you have some project where you need to, you're trying to digitize and you think using the negative would be an easier way to digitize it. I wouldn't worry about the negatives in this point. You're not reprinting those pictures. If you have the actual pictures to go with the negatives, then you're covered. And whatever you're going to do to save them or digitize them or not, you can do with the printed versions that you have. And so I would say negatives or old media, and you can move them along.
Okay. Let's talk about one more. Um,
Okay.
I thought this was interesting, and this one could probably be a whole show, but there are a few little points we can talk about. Maggie asked, "How much of everything does one really need?" I am talking essentials, kitchen tools slash dishes, living room furniture, bathroom stuff, et cetera, that applies to all of us, and not specifics that apply to a few. Assume two empty nesters reasonably active.
So the obvious answer is that that's entirely up to you, but I think we could talk about a whole bunch of options here and hopefully give you some ideas. Like the analogy I want to make is because you mentioned empty nesters. So when people cook for a family, let's say there's two of you and there were three kids and you would cook for five people every night. The amount of food and cooking utensils and plates and the forks and knives, glasses that get used for five people to eat is much larger than for two people to eat. And so I find that people have said over time that when they become empty nesters, they have trouble adjusting from cooking for five to cooking for two. And that step down is a problem. And so that step down happens in your kitchen, your living room, the bathroom stuff, like what you stocked and maintained for five people living in the house is what your muscle memory is set for, but it doesn't translate. You don't use that level for two people to be there. And so identifying where you're still stocking the house for a volume of use that is no longer happening or a speed of use that's no longer happening. You may still be using the same shampoos, but now the two of you are going to go through it much slower than the five of you did when there was five people in the house. So looking at what kinds of stuff you can shrink the capacity of, the volume of, and then looking at what kinds of things do you want to clean? Why do you think that you need, like the sheets and towels that you needed for five people is not the same volume that you need for two. So cutting something down to, I have two sets of towels and I wrote, one's in the wash and one's, being used, and maybe you need that for two people, and then you can be done. Like the amount of stuff that you keep, the volume of stuff that you keep that reflected that you had a family in the house is reflected in all the stuff. There's way more furniture to sit on. There's way more
Right.
product to use. There's way more things saved to do. And all of that stuff can be reevaluated for there's two of us now, and what kind of volume do we actually need to function? And a minimalist person is going to, keep a couple of forks and a couple of plates and a couple of bowls and move on. Like they're going to keep the bare minimum, which means that they're going to use and wash and use and wash and use and wash. And so you can insert the amount of maintenance and cleaning that you want to do in between uses. And so if you want to have enough plates, kitchenware, etc., to be able to make a few meals, fill up the dishwasher over a couple of days, run the dishwasher and start over with clean stuff, then maybe you need, 3 or 4 days worth of use before you have to clean something to get a new clean plate. I actually have in my kitchen, for the person that doesn't cook, but I have, two pasta bowls, I have 4 plates, I have, you know, 5 or 6 glasses that I use regularly. I have I probably don't even have a full set of 6 silverware pieces. And, like I have one frying pan and one saucepan, 2 saucepans and one baking sheet. It's like I have a little amount of everything because when I need something, I'll have it, but I'm not going to be needing 14 cookie sheets ever in my house at the same time.
Right.
And so keeping 14 cookie sheets is a useless waste of my space. And the same will be true for you, Maggie. The idea that you can reevaluate all your contents for the speed and frequency of what you use, the two of you will use versus what you have been living with up till now, and adjusting for that. And it's all about you will need to reduce. You do not need to keep the house as full as it has been for raising a family because that project is complete, right? And the family is gone. So, and furniture, I'm glad that you mentioned the furniture too, because I think looking at the furniture is one of the things that people neglect to do. Oh, we brought in all this furniture because we had people doing homework and people doing crafts and people doing projects, and we had to have everybody needed to have their own room, and everybody, like there's all kinds of functionality that had to be set up while there were people there doing stuff that is no longer necessary. And so releasing some of those things that you did to make something happen and work, you can release it now that the project is essentially complete, and focusing on that as part of the deal.
Someone talked about furniture recently. I know Anne mentioned her accidental collection of chairs,
Yes, yes, that was so
and
funny.
someone else was talking about furniture. I feel like just last weekend saying we like to have all these people and those people and their families over at this time of year for such and such. Well, is that really a good, is that sufficient reason to keep all that furniture all year? And what
Mm.
is it, what are the downsides to that? Because I'm thinking, if you,
It crowds you out for a one-time use
right,
event.
if somebody comes and stays at your house once a year, and so you have the spare set of sheets and a spare set of towels and a spare set of this and a spare set of that and extras of these things. Well, you know, might it not be better to just find a really nice hotel close to your place and let them stay there and not have any of that stuff crowding you out of your space?
Yeah, exactly. And if you host a once a year event, why not rent the chairs
Right, exactly. Marcia
and
says
not have them crowded in the house?
bring your own chair. Well,
Yeah.
if your guests are not comfortable with that arrangement, you can rent some folding chairs, or you can buy some folding chairs that are smaller, small and flat,
Eat
and
more easily stored.
can. probably go live in your garage if you don't mind
Yeah,
having to
and put
hose
them in
them
the garage and
down.
drape them,
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
right?
Okay, we are just about out of time, so I think we're going to have to leave it there.
Okay.
Um, we are going to be back next week at the usual time. That's August 11th at noon U.S. Central Time. And we haven't picked a topic yet, but watch your email for an announcement. Gail, why don't you give us the tittle?
This week's weekly tittle is Reason or Excuse. This week's assignment is to dig deeper into the reasons we give for not letting go of clutter. Think about an item that you get stuck on. You contemplate discarding it, but each time you end up keeping it. Reflect on your reason for continuing to hold on to the item. Are they indeed reasons or are they excuses? Some way to tell the difference. Excuses tend to be vague. I might need this someday. Reasons are more specific. I'll use this when my grandkids visit. Excuses shut down effort. I can't work on this project because I don't have enough space. Reasons allow the possibility of action. I'm too tired to tackle this now, but I'll make a plan to do it tomorrow. Excuses tend to contain emotion. I'd feel guilty if I got rid of that. Reasons are factually verifiable. I'll keep this until I can confirm its value. If your reasons feel like valid and serious reasons to you, keep the item, but revisit this exercise in a few months to make sure they still stand. If most of your reasons for keeping the item feel like excuses, then make a plan to release the item, or at least make a plan to discuss why you feel that you have to keep it and you're making an excuse to keep it. Like, try to examine why you're creating a box in which to put the item and keep it protected. And then, figure it out and come and tell us about it because we all want to hear about it.
Okay, if you're watching this on YouTube, we'd love for you to join us live. To get notifications about upcoming events, we invite you to join the meetup group by visiting cfhou.com/meetup. You can also follow us on Facebook by visiting cfhou.com/Facebook, or join our mailing list by visiting cfhou.com/subscribe. We love to hear from our audience, so please keep your questions, comments, and topic suggestions coming on YouTube, Facebook, or anywhere that you find us. You can always reach us through the website at clutterfairyhouston.com.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. We hope that you got something out of the show, and we will be back next week. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.